Hello, and today we'll be playing a game called A Fall from Grace. So this VN has been out for a few years now. I'm not going to tell you what it's all about, but I've seen glimpses of this visual novel, and it's about, it's held like, it's kind of like England in the 1700s, I think. At least that's what this world's based off of. And we'll see what it's really about in a little bit. But basically, it's kind of like a friendship between a nobleman, a young nobleman, and a commoner who was hired by the nobleman's family. So yeah, like a friendship between people from two different classes. One that's rich and one that's poor. So let's go ahead and begin. And checkmate. I win. It's not fair. You're so much better at this game than I am. Oh, Cedric, you can't be good at everything. Besides, you did find today a worthy effort indeed. That's easy for you to say. You just won. Cedric folded his arms angrily as he turned to look the other way from where his friend Victor was seated. The two kids were resting in a shady spot in the large garden that stretched out behind Cedric's family home. The chess match had taken up much of the afternoon, and by now the sun was beginning to set, soaking everything with a beautiful orange light. The small lake, the various trees, garden follies, and statues had an almost magical look to them, as if they were friendly spirits gently watching over the two. Come on. You have many other talents, such as you're a great artist. I've seen your sketches. They're absolutely fantastic. The one you drew for my dad was amazing. You're just saying that. I'm serious. You still got that hanging on the wall above his head. There was a short pause as Cedric smiled at Victor's kind words. Thanks, I really appreciate it, although I know my parents would not agree with you one bit. Your parents are wrong about a lot of things. Art's one of your great talents. Being pedantic is another. I'll shut up. The two laughed as Cedric got up and stretched a little before gazing towards the setting sun. Your garden looks so beautiful today. Cedric was only half listening and turned to face the fox a few seconds later. It's not fair for my family. My family has all of this. When we're older, I'm going to make sure you're given half of this property at least. Victor let out a slightly melancholy chuckle. Don't make promises you can't keep, you rascal. I mean it. You're my best friend, and I'd give you everything I have if I could. I'd love to see your family live in a home as lavish as mine. Well, I might be foolish, but I still believe in miracles. Victor got up, walking to where Cedric was standing, and he gently held his friend's hand. Promise me you'll never leave, Vic. What? Promise me you'll always be here with me, no matter what. Where's this coming from? Of course I will. I know, I just need to hear you say it. Please, Vic. You have my word. I'll be by your side forever, Cedric. The sounds of distant fiddling reached their ears. The ball Cedric family was hosting that evening had already begun, and the chatter of the guests could all be heard coming from the house. I'll slip you off now. My parents will want me to greet some of the guests. That's fine. My dad will probably need some help laying the tables and getting food out of the kitchen. See you tomorrow then? Victor smiled reassuringly as they started making their way back towards the house at a rapid pace. See you tomorrow. And with that, the fox was off, soon fading out of view in the dimming light of the evening. Cedric, listen to me. We're worried about you. You used to be ashamed of yourself. Look at me. You're never to see him again as long as you live in this house. Is that clear? Have you no consideration for your own parents? How many times have we had talks like this? All for nothing. We hope you would have heeded our advice by now. Cedric, you never listened to us. We warned you time and time again, and we had it. If you keep wasting your life away mingling amongst people like him, then we have no choice. As of now, you are no longer welcome in this home or as part of this family until you smarten up. Maybe we should have done this long ago, but perhaps the real world will knock some sense into you. Now get out. Cedric suddenly opened his eyes, startled by the loud noise he heard. He looked around worriedly, wondering where it might have come from. He then noticed a mug next to him and quickly realized the noise he heard was actually just something slamming it onto the table. Cedric. Hey, are you alright? Cedric jolted as he felt something tugging at his right sleeve. For a moment he had been overcome by thoughts and memories he often did his best to not think about. He sat still for a while, staring numbly at the lion sitting beside him. Are you right? The lion's tone became slightly more insistent as Cedric noticed how ridiculous he must have looked to everyone sitting nearby. I'm fine. Sorry I went quiet for a bit. I was just thinking of something. Whatever it is, can it not wait until tomorrow? Tonight is supposed to be a jolly occasion. Do try to not spoil it by being all moody. Cedric nodded. It was as if he'd been awakened from a deep slumber, but everything was quickly becoming clear once again. He glanced around the tavern as he saw the innkeeper pass by. He looked over at the other tables where folks were sitting, making merry with their meals and drinks. Cedric had only been to this tavern a few times in his life, and that had been many years ago, but still the atmosphere felt oddly familiar, not exactly cozy, but quite laid back and cheerful. The lanterns hanging from the wooden beams, the old stone walls, as well as the wooden barrels above the counter all gave the place a rustic feel. He still felt slightly uneasy though, and a bit of envy got the best of him as he gazed on the other patrons sitting at their tables and enjoying themselves. Finally, he set his eyes on the familiar shape of his friend, Lysander. By now the lion had gone back to chatting and drinking with the two friends he brought along for some company. Cedric was adamant about not wanting to spoil the mood, and soon joined in the playful banter. I swear, if that bloke at a table on the far left had anything more to drink, he'll fall off his chair. He'll have some good company. You keep this up, Bill. Isn't this your fifth pint? For Bill, that counts as number one. How are you doing, Cedric? You seem a bit quiet just now. Oh, I'm fine. That is Cedric for you. Always so glum at the worst possible time. Hey, I didn't decide to, what, never mind. You still staying at Lysander's aunt's place? Since his parents kicked him out, yes. Cedric scowled as the others laughed. Ly helped me out. Luckily his aunt's a lovely old lady. It was the least I could do, considering the blame for the whole endeavor falls upon me. What do you mean? Well, you fellows know I'm not the best at saving money. Cedric is of a similar disposition, and his parents got tired of it. Oh, I see. You're lucky your folks are as rich as they are, Lie, or you might be in a comparable situation. No need to lecture me, Jack. Cedric is already good enough at that. Hey, if there was one thing Cedric didn't like about Lysander, it was the fact he didn't know when to ease off on the insults, even if it was all in good fun. But overall, he was a pleasant person to be around, and Cedric was very grateful to him for his assistance since he essentially become homeless. The last few months had been tough for him, but Lysander had been there to help him through thick and thin. Before he could lose himself to his thoughts again, he focused back on the conversation at hand, which had turned towards drinking games. This one in particular was a favorite amongst the group, giving each other dares that would normally be simple if they weren't all so drunk. Cedric, your turn. Alright, Jack. Went around the table 3 times. Sure. Jack was already beginning to slur his words slightly, all the more reason it would be funny to see him try to run around in a circle. That's way too tame, Cedric. Be nasty. Cedric simply cannot be nasty. It goes against his sweet and caring nature. Well, someone's in love. Jack was stumbling around the table and almost lost his balance after saying that, much to the amusement of everyone. Lysander, however, had seemed to go a bit more red in the face at the comment. Your turn now, Bill. Very well, then, Lie. Ha! I should have known you would choose me. What sort of Herculean task must I accomplish this time? If you like Cedric so much, I want to see you kiss him. Jack fell onto his chair after completing his task. Ooh, that's a good one. The color seemed to subtly leave Lysander's face as he sat there in shock. He began to collect himself quickly, however, and crossed his arms angrily. That's silly and immature, and I'm not going to do it. Come on, Lie. Since when were you concerned about being mature? Shut up, Bill. I'm not doing this. Think of another one. Things were beginning to grow a little tense, and Cedric tried to alleviate the thickening atmosphere. It's all right, Lysander. It's just a game. It's disgusting. That's what it is. I'm a man, not some sort of silly girl you think you can make fun of. Not even a kiss on the cheek, that's perfectly acceptable. Be a good sport. At this point, Lysander's face had seemed to grow even harder. Whether it was from embarrassment or anger, the boys couldn't tell. Fine. Lysander quickly leaned in and gave Cedric the lightest of kisses on the cheek. So light, in fact, Cedric almost didn't feel the line touch him at all. The others cheered and had a good laugh, while Lysander looked somewhat relieved but still very uneasy. Happy now, you perverts. Your turn next, Lie. You've earned it. Lysander let out a sigh and allowed that familiar spark of mischief from earlier in the evening to return to his eyes. Very well, Jack. I want you to do the same thing to Bill. The rest of the evening seemed to fly by as the group passed the time joking, drinking, and enjoying themselves. The slightly tense moment had soon been forgotten about, and Lysander was at ease, being his usual boisterous self again. It was only when the innkeeper told them he was closing that they finally got up from their table and clumsily made their way towards the door. The streets were quiet and deserted as the friends made their way home. Bill and Jack's homes were closest, whilst Lysander and Cedric had to get to the other side of town to reach theirs. It wasn't a very long walk, though, as the town was on the smaller side, bigger than any village close by, but nothing compared to the larger towns further east. They were walking through one of the wealthier neighborhoods, which had a few old houses scattered here and there, but consisted mostly of buildings that had been redecorated or entirely rebuilt in the last 100 years or so. Cedric often thought that was a bit of a shame, as the old Tudor houses had a certain charm to the newer buildings were lacking entirely. The streets were also lit by rows of hanging lanterns, which the town had been gifted by some wealthy visitor many years before. These were beloved by everyone as they helped make the whole place look unique and even slightly oriental. More importantly, they also helped keep the streets safer at night. "We're going this way, you drunkards." The lion gestured towards a side street as neither Bill nor Jack seemed to realize exactly where they were headed. In fact, they were all completely drunk and heading in the wrong direction, including the ever-confident Lysander. Oh yes, home is that way." "It is?" The others chuckled as they took the side street. "The dares were funny. You can't change my mind." Jack tried to say something, but the slurred sounds that came out of his mouth were not easy to interpret. You're quite fond of them, aren't you, Bill?" "They just get everyone to loosen up a bit. You have a certain line, I know." "Oh, please, of course I would have a hard time loosening up when asked to kiss one of my closest friends. I'm not a tail-raising pervert." "It was just a joke, Ly. I'm not expecting you to marry Cedric." "Cedric didn't get many dares." "Yeah, we went easy on him tonight." The group's pace quickened a bit as they started walking down a slope. Without even noticing it, they had left the wealthier neighborhoods behind them and had reached one of the poorer parts of the town. The streets were narrower and the buildings more run down. The rows of lanterns were also gone and had been replaced by a few irregular solitary lights hanging from the sides of some of the houses. Overall, the atmosphere felt much less safe than when they had been walking a few minutes before. "Hey, Cedric." "Yes, what?" I dare you to go into that dark alley over there." Lysander pointed in the direction he meant and began to giggle slightly. "But why should I do that?" "Because it would be funny." Cedric gazed at the alley for a moment as his brain tried to decide what was the best thing to do. "All right, Mr. Comedian, I will." Cedric slowly made his way towards the alley, determined to prove something to his friend. What that something was hadn't made itself entirely clear, however. He began to hesitate as he got closer. "Come on, you can do it." "Go on, you chicken." Something didn't seem right. Cedric came to a halt and glanced worriedly at his friends before finally stepping into the alley and out of sight. And if Cedric had turned back then and there, perhaps nothing might have happened that night. In fact, none of the friends would have encountered the masked figure who was waiting for them in the saddles. Lysander and the others stood still for a moment as they waited for Cedric to reappear. "Hey, Cedric, are you alright?" "Why isn't he coming back?" "I don't know." "Where is he?" A few seconds later, the coyote finally reemerged from the darkness. The others were very relieved to see him. "He gave us such a fright." But they soon noticed there was someone else with him. Someone else was holding a dagger to his throat. "Your money, pretty boys, and no I gets hurt." The group stopped in their tracks as a figure walked up to them. There was a short and awkward silence as they began looking around worriedly. None of them were sure what to do, let alone if this was real and not some drunken hallucination. I said your money if you want your friend to make it home tonight. The bandit's tone became more like a growl. Cedric squirmed a bit as the blade began to press into his neck, his anxiety rising by the second. Please, guys, do as he says. Bill was the first to move, taking a step forward and fumbling with something in his pocket. Nice and easy, boy. Just like that. The moonlight reflected upon the metal that Bill drew from his pocket, illuminating not coins but something with a handle. Let him go, you low-life bastard. In an attempt of drunken bravery, Bill grabbed his small pocket knife and rushed forward towards the aggressor. The bandit let out a sigh. At this, shaking his head, they always had to make things difficult. As Bill got closer, the bandit sidestepped out of the way with Cedric. Unfortunately, he failed to take into account the drunken sway of the man. The pocket knife's arc turned unexpectedly, slicing through Cedric's upper arm. The bandit released his grip, used his now free movement to grab Bill and swing him back towards the others, stumbling briefly before falling and rolling to their feet. Ah! Cedric fell to his knees, gripping his arm as he yelled in pain. Bill managed to get up and decided that making a run for it was now the best option. He was quickly followed by a stumbling Jack. Lysander stood there for a few more moments as he looked around with sheer terror on his face. The bandit put his arm around Cedric and forced him up again, returning his dagger to the coyote's neck once more. Your money, or I'll slit your friend's throat. The line was off like the wind before the bandit even managed to finish his sentence. Lysander, hey, help me! Lysander turned to glance at his friend, but showed no sign of wanting to slow down. The two shared one last look, their eyes filled with terror at the thought that this was the last time they ever see each other. Lysander also had a look of regret about him as he abandoned his friend, knowing the bandit would certainly kill him. The line soon disappeared from view and was swallowed by the dark of the night. The bandit let go of Cedric, who fell onto the ground. He slowly paced up and down close to where Cedric was crouched, panting and clutching his arm as blood had started to pour out from the wound. He was feeling dizzier with each passing moment, and everything was starting to grow dim. Well, that failed spectacularly. Fuck. The bandit threw one of his daggers to the ground in frustration and let out a long sigh. Then he turned to Cedric. At least I got one of you. Now, you be a good boy and keep quiet. He knelt down and reached for his victim's pockets, dagger still held with precision towards his throat. There was a moment then, and the bandit froze as the moon appeared from behind the clouds, allowing him to get a better look at said victim. What the, Cedric? Is it you? But by now, Cedric was not able to answer as he felt his eyelids grow heavy and everything around him quickly transitioned to pitch black. A pleasant smell filled Cedric's nose, grabbing his attention as soon as he opened his eyes. He seemed to be in an old building that looked like it had been decades since anyone had called it a proper home. The sunlight shone through the broken windows and the large cracks that ran along the wall. By now, Cedric was fully awake and was starting to become worried as his mind began racing, the events of the night prior catching up with him. Where was he? Why did that bandit spare him the night before? How did he know who he was? He tried to move on and was quickly reminded of the wound on his right arm as soon as he did. Ow. It was still quite painful. However, he immediately noticed it had been tended to and someone had carefully bandaged it up. He was lying on an old straw bed, and his back had been propped up against the wall. He caught a whiff of what smelled like boiled potatoes. Hey, is there anybody here? What's going on? Whoa there. Everything's okay. Don't panic. The bandit from the previous night walked into the room. He was no longer wearing his mask, and Cedric got a good look at his face for the first time. He was a fox about his own age, with a long, thin muzzle and flowing dark hair. Cedric couldn't believe his eyes and sat there in silence for a moment. Are you alright? Victor, is that you? Cedric, it is you after all. The fox smiled gleefully as he put down a plate with a couple of boiled potatoes next to where Cedric was lying. It's nothing much, I'm afraid, but this is the food I had. I did manage to get some food. I did manage to get some good bread the other day, but I finished it yesterday evening. Sorry. What are you doing here? I mean, where is here? Well, it's fairly simple. This is how I live these days, and this is where I stay when I'm in town. Yesterday evening, I decided I would mug a couple of drunks, but that didn't go too well, as you know. And then I realized one of them, the one who ended up getting robbed, was you. I'm sorry about that. It's okay. I'm just taking this all in. Of course, you'll need a moment to gather your thoughts. Cedric was quite dumbfounded. He could never have anticipated this. It was as if he was dreaming. He almost felt like pinching himself to see if this was actually occurring. He thought it might be best to try and have some casual conversation for the sake of it, rather than just sitting there like an idiot. How are you doing? As well as can be, I guess, just getting by any way I can. What about you? How are you doing? Obviously not too well right now, but you know what I mean. Not bad, just living my usual slightly boring life. This was followed by more silence as Cedric quickly realized small talk wasn't going to get them anywhere anytime soon. He glanced away from Cedric for a moment as he gathered the courage to put what he was thinking into words. Victor, you become a bandit? How did that happen? Victor remained quiet for what seemed like quite a while. That's the story I'd rather be telling your parents about than you. What do you mean? Are they directly responsible for it? No, it's not like that. It's just after they forced my family to leave the estate, we had no money at all. My father began looking for employment elsewhere, but it wasn't easy, so I resorted to stealing. It went well at first, but I should have known it wouldn't last. One day I was caught and they threw me in jail for 2 excruciatingly long years. During that time, my dad found a job, and once I was free again, I found out my family wanted nothing more to do with me, as much as I've had to make my living this way. So yeah, I moved from town to town, but I've always stayed in and around this area for now. Cedric had often wondered what had happened to Victor, but actually hearing the whole story from the fox the first time was quite a gut punch. He felt awful about it. Worse than that, he felt completely powerless as he hadn't been able to do anything to help his friend when he needed him most. Victor, I had no idea. I haven't seen you since the day my parents forced you to leave. I want you to know I was always completely against it. You were my best friend. I still can't believe I'm actually talking to you. It is a strange situation, isn't it? The fox smiled gently as he began eating his share of the potatoes. What must you have thought of me when you recognized me? A drunken idiot whose life is in shambles? I'm ashamed of it. Oh, come on. You got nothing whatsoever to be ashamed of. You seem like exactly the same lovable idiot I used to know. The lovable idiot who always used to get you into trouble, you mean? Remember that one time we stole all my father's wigs? How could I forget? That was your idea, rascal. Yeah, you went along with it. We weren't always up to no good, though. Sometimes I was busy beating you at chess. Hey, I won a fair amount of matches. Victor gazed at the coyote with an amused but skeptical look. All right, more like 2, but I still won. What about art? Have you kept up with drawing? Cedric looked away, as if he was slightly embarrassed Victor had brought up the subject. I gave that up years ago now. That's the saying. You were seriously talented. The two kept chatting as they ate together. Cedric had almost forgotten just how close he and Victor were, and it didn't take long for either of them to feel comfortable talking about anything. Cedric couldn't help feeling a sense of shame throughout all of this. Victor had been through so much, yet here he was making the best with what he had. Cedric, on the other hand, he seemingly squandered away his life as well as his fortune and was left with almost nothing. He needed to turn things around. He needed to fix his past mistakes. He needed to get his act together. After talking for what quickly became more than a few hours, Cedric was doing much better and felt ready to head home. He told Victor as much, and the fox nodded in agreement. Yeah, you should head back before anyone gets too worried. I might just have to ask you one favor first, though. You're a great friend, and I trust you dearly, but I must make sure no one can find this hideout, so... He hesitated for a moment, looking slightly embarrassed. I'm gonna have to blindfold you for a bit. Oh, I understand, of course, just I can't guarantee I won't die while walking down those stairs. I'll make sure you don't meet a premature end, don't worry. A few minutes later, Cedric was standing in a narrow alley close by as Victor took off the cloth he'd wrapped around his friend's head. So, I guess it's goodbyes for now then. I think so. It's been quite unexpected, but absolutely lovely seeing you again, V, and I hope we'll see each other soon. I'm somehow doubt it, but hey, never say never. Goodbye, Victor. Take care. Cedric began walking away at a fairly uneven pace as part of him desperately wished he could stay there. You too. Victor gazed as his friend grew smaller and eventually turned the corner and disappeared from sight. You too. He almost muttered that to himself as he felt his heart sink at the thought of being separated from Cedric again after so many years spent apart. Cedric was walking at a fast pace as he thought about everything that had just happened. He felt reinvigorated after seeing Victor, and although he hadn't spoken of this to the fox, like he would be able to turn his life around and perhaps prove to everyone, including himself, that he wasn't completely useless. He was on his way to his parents' house. This was another spur-of-the-moment decision, but he felt like he needed to have a proper talk with them. However, as he kept walking, a few less optimistic thoughts started creeping up on him. How was he going to prove to his parents he could turn things around? Would they even want to talk to him in the first place? He also began thinking back on that day many years before when Victor's family had been forced to leave his home. Cedric's father said it was because it wasn't right for the son of a nobleman and the son of a servant to be as close friends as Cedric and Victor were. And they most certainly were the closest of friends, as there was a time when they'd spend most of their waking hours together. As he kept walking, Cedric couldn't help but wonder if there was some other reason why his parents had been so worried about their friendship. Soon he reached the old building, whose imposing appearance grew more menacing with each step he took towards it. He reached the door and stood still for a moment. There was nobody around, and only the faint sound of a car passing by in the distance broke the overbearing silence. There was a damp feel in the air as the sky grew more and more overcast. Okay, Cedric, it's now or never. All you got to do is knock. Just knock. He automatically raised up his right arm, immediately remembering it was still quite sore. Ouch, damn it. Cedric paused for a moment as he gathered his courage. Then the moment turned into a few minutes, and soon a few minutes became far too many. He slowly lowered his arm and began moving away from the door, looking utterly defeated. I knew it was going to go this way. What was I thinking? As if they'd take me in again after everything that's happened. Cedric let out an aggressive sigh as he quickened his pace and walked in the direction of Lysander's aunt's house. As soon as he set foot inside, he was greeted by the familiar flowery perfume the entire house emanated. Aunt Jane was sitting in her chair, having one of her many daily cups of tea. She didn't move, but clearly noticed Cedric's arrival. "Is that you, dear?" "Good afternoon, madam." "Where have you been? I was starting to get worried." Cedric knew she actually didn't really want to hear his reply to that, as the poor lady couldn't concentrate for very long, but he tried answering anyway. "Well, a lot of things happened since last night, and let's just say I tried to." "That's nice, dear. Have you seen that blue china bowl I use for soups? I'm sure one of the servants has nicked it." No, I haven't." She grumbled as he sat down in his usual chair and tilted his head up towards the ceiling. "Margaret's stepsister cousin's husband came to visit me yesterday. I generally have no idea who you're talking about." Cedric wasn't doing a good job hiding his rising anger at the current situation he was in. "He's lovely, and he gave me 2 beautiful candlesticks like the ones your grandfather used to own. Madam, I'm not your nephew. I'm his friend. Cedric, remember?" "Oh, of course, Cedric, dear. For a moment I thought Lysander was here with us." "Speaking of Lysander, where is he?" "He told me he was visiting his parents this morning." "Did he mention me at any point?" "I can't recall, dear." Cedric snorted sarcastically at the thought of what kind of person would leave their friend in danger and not even bother to find out what had happened to them. Lysander was such an inconsiderate, egocentric prick, and the coyote began to wonder why on earth he was still friends with him. It was at that precise moment the door swung open and the lion himself walked in. "Is lunch ready?" "Have you already eaten, dear?" "I had lunch a few hours ago." Lysander was taking off his overcoat and hadn't even noticed Cedric. I forgot to give Lysander the deep voice. "Well, I have not, so I would appreciate some food." All right, Lizzie." Aunt Jane got up from her chair and headed towards the kitchen. "I told you not to call me Cedric, what on earth happened to you? You're all dirty and bandaged up." "Oh, that's a laugh, you asking me what happened after you left me at the mercy of an armed bandit." "Well, what was I supposed to do? Run into your arms and get stabbed to death? Calling for help would have been nice." Cedric raised his voice as he started to get up from his chair. "Look, I'm panicked, okay? And I'm glad you came home safe. Well, you certainly didn't bother to find out if I was safe up to now." "Shut up, Cedric. The whole world doesn't revolve around you." "Not you, you bastard. Nor you, you bastard. If you actually asked me how I was doing or what happened, I could tell you a really interesting story, but no, just Cedric overreacting as usual. Lysander didn't miss a beat, picking up on what Cedric had just said. What interesting story. Cedric paused as he stared furiously at the wooden floor, worried he might have said too much. Come on, Cedric. I am curious after all. It probably would have been safer not to tell Lysander anything, but Cedric thought it was best to be honest with him. There was a bit of an excuse, though, because in reality, all he wanted was to be able to tell someone else about what had happened to him the night before. I'll keep it short as I don't feel like talking much right now. The bandit turned out to be someone I used to know very well, an old friend of mine. What? It's no big deal. He was the son of one of the servants that used to work for my parents. We were great childhood friends. You were friends with the son of a servant. My apologies, Cedric. But that's ridiculous. What could you possibly have in common with the likes of someone like that? Friendship doesn't distinguish between classes like we're all people, and you know that. That might be true, but there is a reason why the poor are poor and we are not. It is their own inclination, for if they work hard enough, they would be just like us. And you mingling with someone like that worries me a lot. You know what? Why don't we have this talk another time? I'm not in the mood for your stupid ideas. Alright then, mister. I spend time with the common folk, but I cannot spend more than 2 seconds with my friend. Have it your way. Lysander stomped off towards the kitchen, and Cedric sat back in his chair, staring at the ceiling once more. The more he thought about it, the more he realized just how much he actually disliked Lysander, and to hear the lion talk about his greatest friend so dismissively certainly didn't help. Most of the day went by as Cedric kept to himself in his thoughts, mainly how much he found Lysander annoying and how he blamed him for getting him into this current situation. Cedric had never been good at saving money, and after he met the lion, the problem had only gotten worse to the point that his parents had ended up forcing him to leave and hadn't sent him any money since. Now Cedric concluded that for some reason he'd almost been hoping Lysander would be a good replacement for Victor, which was clearly not the case. Lysander was snobbish, petty, and selfish. Victor, on the other hand, still seems just as kind, caring, and sweet as he used to be years ago. Eventually, Cedric spent most of the evening thinking about the fox and just how much he liked to see him again, to the point that he wondered if this was becoming a bit of an obsession. But he now knew he had to see Victor. Cedric spent the next few days searching the town streets, hoping to come across Victor by miracle. He had no lead in the fact that Victor moved from town to town and had to spend most of his life in hiding certainly didn't help. He tried asking people about this masked bandit, but still nothing. Eventually he met a wealthy lady who claimed she had been mugged by what seemed to be Victor as she was walking home one evening a few weeks before. Unfortunately, she had been so scared she couldn't really give him any other details. He also spoke to some of the town guards who told him they had been searching for this criminal's hideout for months, yet still hadn't gotten anywhere. Cedric hit himself as he wished he paid more attention to where that old building was while he was there. The light was starting to fade as Cedric walked past the tavern. He hadn't been there since the evening he met Victor, but since he had gotten nowhere yet, he figured he might as well have a quick drink there. Perhaps he could ask the innkeeper if he knew or had heard anything about the bandit. As soon as he was inside, he noticed a large wanted poster stuck to the door whilst he was closing it, and the image fully matched Victor's masked appearance. Wanted, dead or alive. Any person that catches this criminal shall receive great compensation from His Majesty the King. Cedric scoffed slightly, as if the king cared or even knew about some bandit in a small town. He walked up to the counter where the innkeeper was serving some beer to a few other customers. Once he finished, he turned towards Cedric. "Evening, sir. What can I get for you?" "A large cider, please." He looked back at the poster as the innkeeper filled up his glass. "You recognize that criminal?" "Yes, it's complicated. I've been searching for him these last few days." "Oh, want to receive the great compensation that poster mentions? I wouldn't bother as they don't specify the actual price." "Do you know anything about him, or has anyone told you anything that might help me find him?" "I'm afraid I have to disappoint you. I've heard surprisingly little of him." He paused for a moment. "Although I heard a few clients of mine were ambushed after leaving this place mere days ago. Yeah, I was one of them." "Oh, really? I'm sorry. I didn't recognize you." "I'm fine, don't worry. You want to get even with him?" Cedric looked slightly confused for a moment. "Oh, no. Well, not exactly. Quite alright. It's none of my business after all." The coyote had soon finished his pint. The innkeeper was out on the streets once more. It was dark now, and the streets were quiet, much like the night when he had been walking home with Lysander and his friends. For a moment it felt like he was still wandering along the alleys with them, and that none of the events that followed had actually taken place. As Cedric marched on, he turned the corner, and at that precise moment he thought he caught a glimpse of something. No, someone. He was sure he saw a figure on one of the rooftops that looked like Victor. It had to be him. But as soon as he noticed, it was gone. Everything was silent and still, just like it had been a few seconds before he saw the figure. It could have been anything, perhaps a large bird. Cedric sighed as he quickly concluded his mind was starting to play tricks on him, and that it was probably best if he got home and had himself a good night's sleep. Then he felt a hand on his shoulder. "Hello there, pretty boy. I thought I recognized you." Cedric turned around excitedly. "Victor!" "Shh, keep it down." Victor clapped a hand over Cedric's mouth to quiet him. "You silly dog. I'm a wanted criminal, remember?" "Sorry, it's just I've been looking for you." "It was wonderful seeing you again, and I've been thinking about you a lot these last few days." Victor was excited and somewhat amused at the idea that his friend had been thinking about him so much, especially since he had been doing the exact same thing. Suddenly he became self-conscious of how close he and Cedric were standing to each other, and how his body was pressed close to Coyote's. This was probably way too close for either of them, he thought. He quickly let go of him and took a few steps back, brushing his coat and gathering his composure. "Likewise, Cedric. Look, why don't we talk somewhere more private? I'm sure we still have a lot to say to each other." "Of course." A short time later, they were back in Victor's hideout. It was sitting in the room Cedric was starting to become quite familiar with. Victor had lit a few candles, and the atmosphere was unexpectedly cozy. Cedric was on the old straw bed again, whilst the fox had pulled up the only chair in the room. "So, what's on your mind? Why were you looking for me?" "Well, the main reason is that I really wanted to see you again, but I also need someone I could talk to. Basically, I'm stuck. I'm in a bad situation with no one I could really count on, and seeing you just made me realize how much I've lost." Victor was silent for a moment, then scoffed. "How much you lost?" "Cedric, I'm a wanted criminal, having to spend my life in hiding, knowing my parents don't want to see me ever again. and that I most likely will never make it out of the mess I'm in. While you are the son of a nobleman that's just having a moment of crisis during his perfect life, with a steady income, a family he can return to, and friends he can rely on. Not to be rude, but I think you don't really understand the situation. My parents kicked me out of their house months ago. I have no money, and to avoid sleeping on the streets, I have to stay at my friend Lysander's aunt's house. Well, I thought he was my friend at least. In the last few days, I've noticed I don't really like him at all. Hell, he's one of the people responsible for my downfall, always inviting me to parties, balls, gambling, houses, and so on. After all, he can spend all the money he wants. His family is the richest in the whole county. I couldn't afford this luxury, and I was a fool for thinking there would be no consequences to my actions. And now I'm stuck, just like you. The only reason it doesn't look like it is because of my appearance and fancy clothes. I didn't feel like a very satisfying note to end on, but Cedric couldn't really think of anything else to add, so he sat there in silence as he waited for Victor to say something. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that. You're right, I had no idea what you've been going through. I'll be honest with you, Cedric. I felt some resentment towards you these last few days. That was because I didn't know what had happened to you. I just naively assumed your life was perfect. I understand. I was too embarrassed to tell you about it all the other day. Victor got up from his chair and slowly walked toward the door. He opened it, and Cedric got a glimpse of a small, winding staircase beyond it. Follow me. I want to show you something. Cedric walked over to where he was standing, and the two made their way up to the stairs. Can I ask you something? Anything you like. I was thinking back on the day you left. We both know the main reason why that happened, but I couldn't help wondering if there was some other reason my parents didn't tell me about. His train of thought was interrupted as soon as they reached the top of the stairs. Cedric was surprised to see a large window that led onto the roof of the building, and beyond it a beautiful view of the whole moonlit town. He could now understand where they were, and they must have meant Victor trusted him enough to know he wasn't going to give away the location of his hideout. For a moment, Cedric felt very proud of himself. Wow, it really is something. Beautiful, isn't it? Yeah. The fox stepped onto the roof and beckoned at his friend to follow him. Come on, I'll show you where I spend my nights most of the time. Cedric followed him almost instinctively, even though he had no idea where they were headed. I'm sorry, I forgot to answer what you were saying. The fox suddenly sounded a bit nervous. Yes, I think there might have been another reason. You know, we were very close. I think they might have feared we were too close, that we were lovers. Cedric was taken completely by surprise. He never even entertained this thought. I suppose that makes sense. We were always together. Victor began walking again. Pretty much. The conversation grinded to a halt for what seemed like way more than a few seconds. The two walked on the tiles and reached the rooftop of a nearby building. Victor sat down against one of the chimneys, and Cedric did the same. So, what are you going to do now? I mean, in the next few days? I have no idea. I was thinking about leaving this town for good. I'm tired of wandering about the same places all the time. I want to try heading east towards the bigger towns. Who knows, I might get lucky and be able to find some work there. Granted, I have to buy myself some new clothes and change my appearance as well as my name, but it would be more than worth it for a fresh start. For a moment, Cedric became worried he wasn't going to see Victor ever again. Trying to suppress the bubbling panic, he gathered his thoughts and answered the fox somewhat jokingly. Maybe I could run away with you. It's not like I have many other options anyway. Victor looked at him, and suddenly his eyes seemed to light up. Actually, the idea isn't half bad. You could come with me. I'd be happy to have a traveling companion. You mean it? Of course, life's way more fun when you've got some company. I have someone to talk to besides myself, and between the two of us, I've talked to him way too much anyway. He noticed Cedric was looking a bit uneasy. It was likely conflicted about the whole matter. He leant towards him and held his hand reassuringly. Look, think about it. And if you decide you're serious and you want to come with me, meet me on the outskirts of town tomorrow night. Tomorrow? Cedric asked, even though he'd heard that for the first time. I will. I need to think it through. But you have no idea how much I want to. The two spent another hour sitting there, quietly chatting and just enjoying each other's company and the beautiful view from the rooftops. It was moments like these, Cedric thought, that made life really worth living. Before the morning hours could begin, Victor found himself skulking through the darkened streets once more. He adjusted the mask on his face, careful to make sure it was tightly secured in place. He didn't need any additional whisk for his job. This would be the last one he needed in order to prepare for the journey ahead. Victor drifted a hand down to his belts, triple checking to make sure the empty set tucked into them was secured. This was the usual gear he required for the days when muggings had gone badly and he'd have to resort to stealing from the wealthier people's homes. He made a habit of not stealing from buildings in his hometown, but given this was his last day here, he reasoned he'd make it a particularly memorable one. The people he'd be visiting today deserved it more than any of his past victims, which was quite a feat given the fact he'd robbed many horrid individuals. One more time, just to be sure. Knife, dagger, rope, sack. That should be everything. He muttered this to himself as he checked it all again, making sure he hadn't left anything behind. Yes, well done, Victor. Keep up the good work, you handsome devil. There were hints of sarcasm in his tone as he spoke, remembering a time when he planned a heist nearly perfectly and broke into the home of a gentleman, only to realize he left his sack behind. To be fair, that was one of his first ever attempts. Things are bound to go wrong when starting out. It didn't make it any less humiliating having to leave the house with nothing but some pockets of silverware, though. He turned the corner and found himself greeted by the familiar flickering of the hanging street lanterns. He quickened his pace as his destination drew closer. If my memory is correct, the wooden gate to the far right side of the house should be easy enough for me to jump. From here, I can sneak in through the wine cellar. They always leave a few windows open there to supposedly let it all air out, bloody fools. Let it all air out, bloody fools. Once inside, I head upstairs to finish the job. He nodded along to himself, confirming every detail. What's more, there are no pets of any sort, likely due to their lack of interest in anything lesser than them bastards. He quickly brushed off the emotions to avoid working himself up. An angered mind makes for sloppy work, after all. I'll still be able to pull this off with nary a peep nor an additional whisk. If only every job were like this. The tension slowly started to build as Victor reached the Lord's Gate. However easy this particular heist was going to be, it still wasn't without its risk. He paused briefly as he was about to start his climb, studying the gate. Surely not. With a small push, the gate opened, a lot like it had been those many years ago. They really think they're safe from all harm. A small chuckle escaped his lips as he entered the courtyard, slinking across it until he reached the front of the building itself. He stood still for a few seconds as he gazed at the moonlit facade. The structure that had once looked so imposing to the younger Fox was now just another target of his desires. He smiled as an intense wave of satisfaction overcame him. "You're going to pay for everything at last, you witch bastards." The next day seemed to go by excruciatingly slowly, as all manner of thoughts raced through Cedric's mind while he paced up and down Lysander's aunt's home. Was he really just going to leave everything behind? Then again, he didn't really have much to leave behind in the first place. Still, how did he know he was going to get along with Victor? What if something had happened to them? A bandit's life was not an easy one, and he felt he was definitely not cut out for it. At the same time, you never know what something going to be like until you've tried, and Cedric couldn't help picturing himself with Victor going on adventures together. Those weren't the only thoughts that crossed his mind, though. He thought back to what Victor had said about his parents possibly thinking the two of them might have been in a relationship. As much as Cedric tried to hide it, he really enjoyed that thought. He'd never been interested in women, and just imagined he might be somewhat particular or fussy. But now he knew. He was attracted to men, and Victor was chief among them. It all made sense now. His teenage dreams about the fox, the closeness he felt to him, and of course the idea of wanting to run away with him. Along with the relief of finally realizing this about himself, however, came a less optimistic thought. Victor surely wouldn't feel the same way about him. He had been somewhat vague about the subject the previous night and had dropped it very quickly, which obviously pointed to him being slightly uncomfortable with the idea. Was the whole thing going to be worth it? Cedric had started packing a few essential things into a straw bag, and now he turned to look at where he laid it down. Maybe it would be better if he didn't get himself into trouble, if he dealt better with problems he was familiar with instead of looking for new ones. Yes, he concluded, he should probably unpack everything and give the whole thing up. "Cedric, there you are." Cedric jumped slightly as Lysander's voice interrupted his train of thought. What are you doing? What is going on?" "Never mind, I'm still deciding if I want to go through with this or not." Lysander remained completely clueless. With what? The line's insistent tone began to irritate Cedric, and the thought of actually leaving once and for all started to seem more ideal. "Ly, why don't we sit down for a moment so I can tell you everything?" "All right, although I do not understand why you have been so mysterious lately." They both sat down on the couch near one of the windows as Cedric started thinking how he was going to say all this. "Well, please, pause me, you'll hear me out." Yes, he was. "Okay, so, I met that friend of mine the other day." "Who, the criminal?" "His name is Victor." Lysander rolled his eyes. "All right, Victor. I went looking for him again yesterday evening. I found him." "What?" "Please let me finish the line." The lion folded his arms grumpily. "We talked for a long time, and I told him about the troubles I've been having lately." "Did he tell you to pick purses or something?" Cedric paused as his anger began to grow. "Sorry, do go on." "He told me he's leaving the town this evening and heading elsewhere, and I think I might be going with him." "You what?" "I mean it. You're mad. You're completely insane." "Who in their right mind would think of such a thing? This isn't a novel, Cedric. This is real life. You can't just run away with someone and leave all your troubles behind you. And with a criminal, no less, a low-life thug who you seem bent on following no matter what. Have you thought about that? While here I am, right in front of you, The friend that has been trying to help you, whom you are ignoring completely. Helping me? Just how have you been helping me? By being your usual spoiled self, by giving me a place to stay and thinking that's going to just solve all my problems as if by magic? I wasn't going to say this, but now you've worked me up. I really don't like you, and I'll be glad to get away from you and your self-centered snobbish ways once and for all. Cedric raised his voice more with each word. I can't even fathom how much better my life could have been if I had never met you in the first place, and maybe once I left, you can find yourself some other young man you can manipulate just like you did with me. How dare you treat me this way? It's about time I decide how to live my life without you ever present interfering, you selfish bastard. A moment of silence followed. Lysander probably hadn't been expecting something so direct. But why? Why what? Cedric had lowered his voice again as he looked away from Lysander with his head in his hands. Why leave with him of all people? Because he is the only one that has honestly offered to help me out. Because he is my closest friend. And because I love him more than I can tell. What? So is this your honeymoon or something? The lion chuckled at his own joke as Cedric remained silent, trying to his best to not get up and strangle him. We were very close, Ly, and I think I might still have some feelings for him. He'd done it now. Cedric immediately regretted saying so and quickly looked the other way. Feelings. Lysander seemed to be completely in dark. Well, the completely sock. Anyway, Lysander seemed to be in complete shock. For a man, and a criminal too. Cedric stood up and turned to pick up the sack he was now grateful he hadn't unpacked. That's disgusting. Cedric, you're insane. Tell me it's not true. Well, it's true, alright. The coyote was starting to feel sort of cathartic satisfaction as he saw Lysander squirming in his seat. He came to a halt in front of the couch the lion was still seated on. Now don't pretend you're any better. I saw how nervous and uneasy you were doing that kiss dare we did at the tavern, and might have slipped past the others by notice. I think you should be asking yourself a few questions before judging me so rapidly. You're insane. You could be living a proper life right now, but you've decided you're going to up and leave everything. And why? Because you have a feeling you might like some common brute. Cedric ignored his comments as he now made his way to the door. How could you do this to me? Answer me. He reached the door and pushed it open. Fuck off, Lysander. All right then, Cedric. Enjoy your life of crime with your low-life friend. But I'm warning you, should you or that scum ever raise a finger against me, there would be hell to pay. You are indebted to me, Cedric, and the moment you forget that will be your last. I'll always collect what I'm owed, you useless, vomit-inducing tail-raiser. But the coyote was already outside and had slammed the door behind him without bothering to listen to his former friend's rant. With a rapid pace, he made his way towards the town's outskirts. He knew it was still too early and that Victor hadn't been there yet, but he didn't care. He just wanted to get away from everyone and everything, and this was his one chance to do so. Back inside, Lysander sat still for what seemed like an eternity as his mind was racing after what had happened with Cedric. Then he picked up a candlestick from the table and slammed it onto the floor out of blind rage. Why? How could you do this to me, Cedric? He groaned as he sat down again. After all I've done for you. Why did I care so fucking much? He ran his fingers through his hair as he gazed emptily before him. Why did he care? Cedric was just some rich idiot, after all, but there was just something about him, something that had always interested Lysander. The lion had never been able to explain what it was or how it happened, but he had become very fond of the coyote. Too fond. What's wrong with me? The night when they had first come across Victor, Lysander had left Cedric at the bandit's mercy because he was worried for his own safety first and foremost. He had thought of Cedric incessantly since then, half hoping he would be alright, and half hoping he would never come back so that the lion could just forget about him. And the fact that he'd been thinking so much about this angered him even more. Now he just found out Cedric was gay and had feelings for someone else. It was a strange mix of emotions, relief at discovering Cedric's sexuality, anger at the fact he had to consider he himself might also like men, but most of all jealousy. Jealousy at the thought of Cedric running away when someone else is with a common thief, no less. You think you're doing the right thing, don't you fool? When you could still be here, leading a safer and better life with me. I would be so good to you. Lysander got up from where he was sitting, picked up his walking stick and marched towards the door, flinging it open and quickly running downstairs. His aunt's maid, Nancy, was the only other person in the building. She heard his footsteps and stepped out of the kitchen to see what all the commotion was about. Oh, Master Lysander, it's you. Is everything all right? Lysander came to a sudden halt as he fixed his gaze on her for a moment. Are you feeling ill? Many thoughts whizzed through his head. Too many. He felt he couldn't keep up. It was all Cedric's fault. And now this common maid was inquiring stupidly as to how he felt. She had no idea what was going on, yet asking about it would somehow help. Lysander felt blind waves build up inside him. Then he suddenly grabbed his stick with both hands and swung it in her direction, just narrowly missing her head with the bronze carving. She screamed and ran out the room, head outside in the direction of the stables. Get back here and do as I say. Lysander furiously followed, reaching the stables in a matter of seconds. He looked around trying to find where she was hiding, as if he were a wild animal hunting for prey. A few seconds later, he had already forgotten about her as something else caught his eye. He noticed his horse nearby and made his way to the spot where he had left it. You'll be back, Cedric. You'll be back. And I'll be waiting. He mounted his steed and rode off at full tilt, quickly vanishing from sight, leaving only a cloud of dust behind him. Cedric had been sitting under a tree just outside the town for a few hours. He had seen no one pass by during this whole time and had managed to have a good quiet about the whole situation. After that, he soon felt better and was now quietly humming to himself as the sun sank beyond the horizon and the stars were starting to decorate the sky. As he finished humming, he heard some footsteps nearby. Hey, Cedric. Cedric smiled as he turned towards Victor. Oh, you're right. Yeah, I'm fine. I packed some stuff I might need and had an argument with my former friend, Lysander. Was he the prick you were telling me about? That's him. Well, as far as I can tell, it's good you finally got him out of your life. So, are you sure about this? About coming with me? As sure as I can possibly be. You might not enjoy it very much, especially at first, and you might not be ready for much action yet, but that will come with time. I'll toughen you up and turn you into a real bandit, I promise. Cedric laughed. I'll do my best, V. That's my boy. My boy. He hugged Cedric, taking him completely by surprise. Your company means the world to me. I'm so happy we crossed paths again after all these years. I mean it. I'm happy to be here with you. The two remained still for a few seconds as they kept hugging. Then Victor let go and turned around to face the road nearby. I think we better be I think we better be going. Follow me. The fox began heading down the road and Cedric walked alongside him. The excitement was high, and both of them seemed to be looking forward to spending the next few days together. Yet Cedric allowed himself to fall behind for a moment to take a look back at his own home. He lived his whole life here, moments both happy and sad, exciting and terrifying. It was hard thinking about everything and everyone he'd leave behind. He was really doing the right thing here. The longer he gazed upon the town, the more these doubts began to creep in. However, he began to realize that when he thought back on it all, the happiest moments he would have were with Victor. When they reconnected that fateful night, it was the first time in as long as he could remember that he felt hopeful. Cedric turned back to Victor as he walked, and his doubts vanished and any fears fleeing from his mind at the sight of his old friend. If there was any chance at a life that would make him happy, it was with a fox. Cricket the coyote caught up so they could walk side by side, and soon the night landscape became quiet once again as the two friends' shapes faded out of sight, leaving the town they both lived in their whole lives behind at last. I'll stop right here. So these words kind of tripped me off at the end. I mean, I'm not fully used to the way, the authors, they use these words, so it kind of tripped me off some. Like how you read and you're not used to the way the words are written. I mean, I can read a newspaper really good, but like when you read a visual novel and the words are kind of different, the sentences are worded a lot differently, So it's not the same like reading a newspaper, because I can read through a newspaper real fast. But anyway, I'm gonna stop right here. So also, like when you press a button, and the screen goes black and it transitions to a different scene. I'm used to like visual novels. It automatically goes to the next scene, but once it goes black, if you want to continue, you gotta press the enter button. So yeah. So anyway, so that was the first video of A Fall from Grace. So we got to see a lot of stuff about different social statuses and social class and apparently Cedric is a nobleman, the rich nobleman, and Victor is like the poor servant, poor person, and Victor's family they were hired by Cedric's family to be their servants, and apparently Cedric's rich family got rid of Cedric's family, so they had to go somewhere else for work, and apparently wherever work Victor's family got, it wasn't enough, so Victor resorted to stealing to make ends meet, and his family got mad at him for him stealing, so they wanted nothing to do with him. So he's been alone all these years, and Cedric, he's been spending a lot of money on parties and drinking, and that made his parents angry, so they kicked him out. And he's been living with Lysander's aunt's house since then, and while he did do a very good thing for Cedric at first. Lysander, he's just as more as Lysander. I mean, as Cedric spent more time with Lysander, he realized that Lysander was just a he was just a bad friend to be with. And him leaving him, Lysander abandoning him with a bandit who turned out to be Victor. That really added to Cedric's dislike of Lysander. I mean, he's just, he's like what he expect from a lot of nobles, in his mind, it seems like anybody who's not rich like him is nothing. Basically like the poor peasants, poor people like these disgusting people to him, and he doesn't want anything to do with them. So, yeah. And the way he treated that maid, his aunt's maid, aunt's servant at like towards the end there, that reinforces his mindset. Like that lady was nothing to him. So anyway, yeah, he's a snobby, uptight noble, looks down on everybody beneath him, and the only reason he talks to Cedric, excuse me. I keep getting these names confused. That's habit I have of these games, confusing people's names. But anyway, the reason he beats with Cedric a lot and seems to, have a lot of respect for Cedric. I mean, not like for what he did, but like, you respect somebody in your own social class. So the reason why he talks to Cedric so respectfully is because he's somebody who's in the same class as him. So he talks to him with respect. Like talk to you as if you're an actual person. While when he talks to poor people, he talks to them like they're barely more than animals. Basically, the poor people like another more like criminals than him, really. I mean, if you're poor, you're guilty, and if you're a poor person who commit crimes, you're even more guilty, basically, in Lysander's mindset. But we got a rich nobleman, Cedric, who clearly doesn't care about the whole rich poor stuff, and he doesn't look down on he doesn't look down on poor people because he befriended Cedric, and he's been friends with him. He's been friends with I'm talking about Victor. He was friends with Victor, and he's been friends with him all these years, and he didn't care about him being poor and being his family's servant. He looked at him as a friend, and his family, his father and mother, they're like Lysander, like they're kind of like uptight rich people, and they don't like his son. They don't like their son going out with I forgot his name, the fox. But anyway, they don't like their son Cedric going out with their servant's son because he's not in the same social standing as them. He's poor. And so they disapprove of that, and that's probably the big reason why they got rid of the fox's family, because they don't like the fox being so close to their son. So yeah. So he told Lysander what's going on with him and the fox now, and he's leaving with the fox so he could be a bandit along with the fox. I'll go back and see what his name is. I forgot his name. Okay, Victor. His name is Victor. So, all right. So he's going with Victor to become a bandit since his parents abandoned him and don't want nothing to do with him, and so and yeah, that's kind of like what both of them have in common. That's kind of like what Cedric and Victor have in common. Both their parents don't want anything to do with them, so they decide to pair up and become bandits and stick together that way. So I guess if if his parents don't want anything to do with him anymore, and they stop sending him money, and if Lysander is such a bad friend, this snobbish, arrogant prick, then it actually made it more easier for Cedric to leave with Victor and become a bandit. So yeah, so like I said at the start of the video, I've read glimpses of this story, but I haven't read it in full. Yeah, I'm enjoying this, and can't wait to see what goes on afterwards. Between the two of them. It's certainly a different type of life Cedric is going into now. So hopefully he makes it, because it's a dangerous job. If you rob people, they could have guns and they could have weapons and they can kill you. So being a bandit, when it comes to bandits and people walking through the roads, it's not just dangerous for the people walking through the roads, it's dangerous for the bandits themselves. Because it's like the people walking through the roads have no idea if there are bandits around and what they're capable of. The bandits themselves also have no idea what these people walking through the woods may have. So it's dangerous for both, people traveling and the bandits themselves. So hopefully, both Victor and Cedric don't eventually get either of themselves killed doing this. Alright, so we'll continue with A Fall from Grace in the next video. Well, next time anyway, because there's another VN I want to do next. But anyway, that's all I have for now. We'll get back to this very soon. So thank you all very much for watching. Goodbye.